Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers.
And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 153. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us on this Friday show. Steelers Nation, Dave, getting ready for the weekend. Pretty quiet time of year overall. Training camp, though, fast approaching the last couple days of June, which puts us into July, which means the start of football season will be less than 1 month away. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing good. We're already halfway through the month of, the 2025 year. Where did everything go? Where does the time go? Like that. Yeah, I'm doing fine. Happy Friday, last weekend of June, and obviously getting into July, training camp month, and we're getting closer. So we'll have some more players on the 90 and 30 series to discuss today. I'll have another 3 players going up on the site today. The DeShon Elliott contract numbers hit the NFLPA yesterday, so we can go over that as well, and we'll see what other loose ends we can tie up going into the weekend. And next week, at least the plan is for us to have have 3 AFC North beat writers on, probably the usual suspects that we have on during the regular season to start previewing each of those teams. I already heard back from Jay Morrison, who covers the Bengals. We had him on the podcast, I believe, a couple of times last year, or at least one time. I can't remember if we did anything for that late in the season or not. But regardless, we'll have Jay on Monday, and then the hope is that we'll be previewing with some beat writers the Browns and the Ravens on Wednesday and Friday of next week. So go ahead and mark your calendars. Like I said, only have one of those set in stone right now, and I'll reach out to those other 2 beat writers later today and into Saturday. But that's the plan for the podcast next week, and in addition to that, we'll be covering more of the 90 and 30 series and helping people try to get ready along with us for training camp.
Looking forward to that, Dave, to get a lay of the land and recap of the offseason around the AFC North and what should be a really competitive division this year. Also, we're recording this later today. This episode will be out next week at some time. Don't know the exact day, but Dave Bryan will make his Steelers Depot Jeopardy debut a little bit later today. So are you excited for that? Have you been studying? Have you been cramming for this final exam?
No. But I better represent myself well. No, I won't be on camera for anybody listening. I don't even have a web camera on my computer here. But I look forward to who's going to be on with me today.
It's going to be David O and Troy. So
David
older
O's
and
pretty
wiser.
Smart guy. Yeah, David O knows
versus younger.
David O knows his Steelers history, and boy, Troy, what an asset he's been to the site. As well too. I think he's been with us probably going on a couple of years now as well too. So and I think you guys got to meet up with him at that Pirates game a couple of weeks ago as well too. So yeah, I look forward. The first episode seems to have gone over really well, and props to you for setting all that up.
Yeah, got a lot of good feedback on episode 1, and hopefully episode 2 will go just as well. Got some good questions for you guys. But Dave, let's jump on in. I know you've been jonesing for the contract details on DeShon Elliott. Those numbers finally out today. So set us straight on what the actual details of this deal looks like.
Yeah, let me start off with a disclaimer. Objects in the rearview mirror may appear closer than what they are, or something along those lines. You know, the great Meatloaf had a song like that on his kind of follow-up album to Back into Hell, I think. Bat Out of Hell. But anyway, those lyrics always ring heavy with me. But what I'm trying to get at here is the original reporting sometimes with these contracts, especially when they get to guarantees, and we've talked about this over the years, that you got to be real careful when the initial reports come out and X amount is guaranteed money. And in the case of DeShon Elliott, I believe the original reporting with that, let me pull it up here and this is already well over a week old that we were talking about there. I think the original reporting on that stated that it was $12.5 million on the 2 New Years, and a 3-year total of the deal was $15.5 million. Those numbers obviously came in correct, but I believe that the guaranteed money was initially reported, and they didn't say fully guaranteed, they just said guaranteed money or guarantees, 9.21 million. Well, the numbers hit the NFLPA, and what it ended up being is they gave DeShon Elliott a $6 million signing bonus, and they gave him a new base salary in 2025 of 1.17 million, and that is the minimum for a player with his credited seasons there. So, and they guaranteed that as well too. So if you take the 6 million, the new signing bonus of 6 million, you add the new fully guaranteed base salary of 1.17 million. Let's see, you get a grand total of fully guaranteed money of 7.17, which is obviously almost a little more than $2 million less than what the guarantees were reported. Now, the base salaries in both 2026 and 2027 are 2.04 million and 2.125 million respectively. He also has roster bonuses in those matching amounts, March roster bonuses in 2026 and 2027. Like I said, matching the amounts of his base salaries for both of those years. None of the money in 2026 is guaranteed, but I would imagine either the base salary or that roster bonus of 2.04 million, whichever one, is probably guaranteed for injury only. And then that's why those agents pump up that number to say 9 point, whatever we said, $12 million in guarantee. But in actuality, the only fully guaranteed money is just what his 2025 take will be, and that's 7.17 million. Now, his cap charge, because of the way this is laid out, with the $6 million signing bonus and the minimum base salary, his new cap number is 3.92 million for 2025, and it was originally scheduled to be $3.75 million in his contract prior to the extension. So it went up a whole $170,000 in cap space they used to get this done. And as far as obviously the cash spending goes, he was originally scheduled to earn $3 million in cash in 2025, and now he will earn 7.17 million. So they increased, they got a little bit of that additional cash spending, but it's not. Look, even if the deal had come out with this being $9.12 million take in 2025, this is still a pretty good deal for the Steelers. But it's even better now from the standpoint that you got less guaranteed money than originally thought or originally reported in this thing. And initially it looked like his cap charge, as we talked about on a couple of shows ago, was going to go up around $1 million. But because of the guaranteed money being lower and the signing bonus being lower than what we originally thought it was going to be, his cap charge only increased $170,000 there. So a good deal, even looks even better on paper at this point when it comes to DeShon Elliott than was originally reported there. And look, obviously, you hope this guy plays out, the entire thing. At this point, there's no reason to think that he won't. But you get to next March, and we'll know how he plays and how his health is by next March, and it'll be a very easy decision for the Steelers to make as to whether or not to pay that $2.04 million roster bonus. I would imagine that barring an injury or something, that will come to fruition there. And his cap numbers in both 2026 and 2027 are slated to be $6.08 million and $6.25 million respectively. So once again, I mean, if you hated this deal, and I don't know why you would have, the right way it was originally reported, there's absolutely no reason to hate it now that the true numbers have come out here. So that's the long and short of it. And they barely used any cap money to get this done and extend him 2 more years. And yeah, that's where we're at with this thing.
Devil's in the details, and this is sort of classic contract reporting where, like you said, the guaranteed money gets talked about, but that lumps in injury guarantees, doesn't understand the full structure of the deal, so that perspective is important. It was a good deal. We heard the initial numbers. It's even a better deal now, as you said. The answer to this may be obvious, but for those hearing this and saying, wow, this is a great deal for Pittsburgh, it seems like there's no risk and hardly an investment there. What is the incentive for Elliott to sign this deal? What is the benefit he gets out of this extension?
You go, well, obviously your average, long and short of it is he goes from 3 million, set to earn 3 million unguaranteed in 2025 to a fully guaranteed 7.17 million guaranteed in 2025. So he more than doubles what he was scheduled to earn, plus it's all fully guaranteed on top of it. So that was the main incentive there. And plus,
Okay.
I mean, it's virtually, it's not fully guaranteed according to over the cap, but it's basically virtually guaranteed the an additional 2.04 million. So
And the Steelers say, listen, we usually pay out these roster bonuses. These guys usually make that mark. And so that gives you confidence you're going to be here. And although contracts are very loose and there are no guarantees, obviously, it does give you at least the thought of security. If you're DeShon Elliott, that I'll be in Pittsburgh, I'm not going to enter a contract year and have some thought in the back of my head, where am I going to play next year? Will I get re-signed? How's my season going? Is that going to impact my market value? And I think there's some comfort for that, even knowing the contracts are barely worth the paper they're printed on. I just think psychologically a guy that has an extension says, okay, this is home for me. And that's big for a guy like DeShon Elliott, who's bounced around 3 different teams the previous last 3 years. So to call a place home, put roots down, that's important.
yeah, and you get it done early, way before training camp, so he's not wondering about it going into training camp and those kind of things there. So look, as we stated, a very nice signing, last year in free agency, and kind of under the radar, I guess, overall, if you will, especially because I mean he more than outplayed what he was paid, what that was 2 years, $6 million originally, what he was signed to, and had a great season. And as we talked about, I think in the last 90 to 30 recaps there's no reason to think that he won't equal or better his 2025 season. Got another year in the system now. Worked with Minkah a full year now, and Minkah played in all 17 games last season. And as we'll get to probably in this 90 and 30, because I think Minkah is part of this one. The expectations are for this duo to be one of the top safety duos in the NFL, quite honestly.
How good can this secondary be, including the corners in this conversation? How confident are you in that group?
I mean, on paper, it looks pretty snazzy, doesn't it? You got knowing what DeShon Elliott did last year, and knowing that, look, Minkah's season wasn't great, obviously, statistically, from the big play, splash play aspect of it. And I thought Minkah played better early in the year than he did later in the year, but at least Minkah played in all 17 games. Remember, he missed 6 or 7 games the season prior to that, and he only has, I believe, 2 takeaways over the course of the last 2 years, and that's got everybody kind of depressed. And you obviously got the carrot hanging out there for Minkah this season, because if he goes back and has a season similar to the one that he had in 2022, he's still young enough where he could be facing another extension, and another lucrative one, and potentially even one that'll make him the highest paid safety in the NFL once again. But he's got to earn that. And I think just the when you look at to answer your question there, you got Joey Porter Jr. expected to take another step in his development. I thought he played well overall, sans the penalties that he had, and most of those coming in a couple of games there. You expect him to go to the next level. You got a veteran coming over in Darius Slay, who should assimilate really quickly into that defense, and you're expecting some things out of him. We'll see what happens with Corey Trice. Thornhill gives you a little bit of flexibility as far as positional third safety on this team, and a little bit better option probably than per se Casey was a year ago. And you got Beanie Big. We'll see how this nickel slot position battle plays out, but between Beanie Bishop and Brandon Eccles. But yeah, I think expectations should be high, at least from the way it looks on paper, at least better than what it looked like it might be a year ago, because we had the unknowns a little bit about Elliott there, and the backup safety position, and could Minkah stay healthy, and you had the whole Cam Sutton and thing going on there, and Beanie Bishop unproven as an undrafted free agent. So yeah, I think the expectations should definitely be a lot higher than they were a year ago, and I do believe that this has the makings of being one of the stronger secondaries in the NFL in 2025, and the Steelers feel that way as well, I imagine.
Solid is the word that comes to mind when I think about this secondary, especially the core four, the two starting safeties and the two outside corners. So who can step up and have that really high-end season, though, is my question, that might take the secondary from solid to something even better than that. Can Minkah return to form? Can Slay continue to find the fountain of youth? A big name to watch, of course, is Joey Porter Jr. in his third season. Can he clean up penalties, make more splash plays, and truly become that number one corner that's recognized as such around the NFL? So that's kind of my question about that group. And then, the slot corner is going to be one of the bigger concerns. Beanie Bishop's ascension, the depth at slot corner, who else gets a look in there? I think depth overall is good. I think depth at cornerback is quietly been well done and put together with Eccles, as you said, and Corey Trice. And you had Thornhill at safety, which I didn't love, but was the best probably free agent out there, and an upgrade over the lack of depth really that Pittsburgh had, and an upgrade over DeMonte Casey from last year, I think. So I think it's a solid group, but can it become something better if one of those guys makes a jump? The other benefit is, of course, if the run defense plays well, the front seven gets after it, that will impact and benefit the secondary as well.
How many secondary interceptions did we have last season? 5, 4, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 of the 17 interceptions during the regular season last year came from members of the secondary. 5 of those, though, came from Dante Jackson, who obviously is no longer in Pittsburgh. 4 came from Beanie Bishop. 2 of those came, of course, off of Aaron Rodgers. DeShon Elliott only had 1. Minkah Fitzpatrick only had 1. Joey Porter Jr. only had 1. Casey had 1. Trice had 1. And James Pierre had 1. So you obviously got to make up those interceptions that those 5 that Dante Jackson gave you last year. I would hope that you see, here's the hope, and Beanie Bishop matches and gets another 4 in 2025. They really need Elliott and Minkah Fitzpatrick to each record more than just 1. Need Porter to have more than 1. And as long as they can reach at least 17 interceptions in total, or at least 15 interceptions from the secondary like they had last year, the goal should at least be 15 from the entire secondary, but I got my sights on around 20. And if this secondary can produce 20 interceptions as a whole, I think they'll be in a good place, especially when you mix in, there's probably going to be a couple of forced fumbles by those guys in the secondary as well, too. So that's my outlook on it, and that's my expectations. And 20 interceptions, I think, from a secondary is a pretty good goal to have, right?
It is. I'm with you 100%. And it still blows my mind that Pittsburgh tied the NFL lead in takeaways last year for the entire defense with 33, despite Minkah only having a pick, Porter only having one interception. I mean, your starting safeties combined had two, and your number one corner had one from Porter. Your nose tackle had as many picks as your number one corner and your star free safety and Keanu Benton had interception against Cleveland. So, Pittsburgh's still getting 33 takeaways despite all that. If Minkah can go back and get his usual 5-6 interceptions and Porter can snag 2 or 3 and the other guys can continue doing their thing. Slade's been a ball hawk throughout his career. Didn't have a pick in the regular season last year, but had one against Green Bay in the playoffs. He's a guy with really good ball skills, really good veteran savvy and instinct. So, yeah, I think this can be a continued ball hawking secondary. It has been a point of emphasis, and I know Terrell Austin is not a popular man in Pittsburgh. I like him more than most. I think the best thing that he's done is really bring over a turnover culture to Pittsburgh. That's been his mindset and philosophy throughout his career, and it's no coincidence that whenever he joined in 2019, the takeaways started to really pile up in bunches, and Minkah was a big part of that. The acquisition, the player talent plays a role, obviously, but I know Austin has always emphasized that, and heck, when you saw DeShon Elliott sign that contract, what was he wearing? A culture takeaway shirt that they hand out in practice last year. And so, that is something they really, really emphasize is taking the football away. And Pittsburgh has done so since 2019. No team has more takeaways than Pittsburgh's 170 turnovers forced. And so that has to continue because I think to play good defense in the NFL today, you want to be good on third down. You got to communicate. Those are things Pittsburgh has to improve upon. But you have to be able to create splash plays. Offenses will move the ball. It's an open world. The rules benefit the offense. Can you get stops and take points off the board? And that's where I think it comes down to. And so takeaways really drives that mission to just get those stops and limit possessions and create opportunities for your offense to have short fields. And those are things that must continue in 2025.
If I would have told you the day before the 2024 regular season started that the Steelers secondary would have 15 interceptions, you probably wouldn't have blinked an eye, would you?
Right, until you told me how those numbers came
right,
about.
Right.
Because I would have said, Minkah's back to form. He's got 6, and Porter had 3. No, it's Beanie and Dante Jackson leading the way.
Yeah, what if I would have followed that up with, okay, there's 15, but 9 of those were by Dante Jackson and Beanie Bishop. You would have told me somebody got injured, something strange was afoot, right?
Right. But, it takes a village to have a defense that can create those plays. And if one guy's not making them, and, Minkah playing free safety, teams did tend to shy away from him. I don't think Minkah had his best season. I thought he wasn't as strong in coverage, but there's certainly a component of teams not trying to test his airspace. They'd rather test Dante Jackson than Joey Porter or Beanie Bishop, the undrafted slot corner. He's going to get tested a fair amount. And so those guys made plays when their number was called.
Look, if you get 20 interceptions out of this secondary, and let's say 5 more from whomever else on a team, 25 interceptions in total, things have probably gone pretty well, right?
How many picks did they have as a defense last year? 17?
17 during the regular season.
Yeah, 25 feels rich. I think 20 is a good number to shoot for.
For the team.
For the defense, yeah.
Okay.
That's what I would look for.
All
right, Dave. Let's go to the 90 and 30. That's kind of the other thing on the agenda today. Some names we talked about. We'll get to Minkah in just one moment, but we'll start with Troy Fautanu, and spotlight is on him. Second-year guy, basically missed his entire rookie season, played in one game against Denver, did okay, and then dislocates his kneecap in practice before the following game and is done for the season. So there's a lot of unknown about Troy Fautanu, but a lot riding on him playing well.
Yeah, the big what if from last year. Your first round draft pick, played a little bit in the preseason and then finally got into a game and actually started that game against Denver. Only played 55 snaps in that game, suffered that knee injury, ended up putting him on the shelf for the rest of the year. There was talk about maybe him coming back late in the season. He never even got his window open on that. So we've got a whole 55 regular season snaps and a handful more from the preseason to go off of. Fautanu came out, obviously the first round draft pick out of Washington, played predominantly at the left tackle spot. In what little that we did see him last year. It doesn't seem like switching sides is going to be much of an issue, much in the way that it was for, let's say, a Dan Moore, and all like that. Some guys, we've talked about this over the years. Some guys can be ambidextrous like that. Just switch sides and the muscle memory and all like that. It's not an issue, and other guys can't. But there's no reason, at least right now, to think that him predominantly playing left tackle at Washington and now being poised to be the starting right tackle for the Steelers in 2025 will be any sort of an issue. But once again, this is a guy that hasn't even played the equivalent of a full game yet. But because of his draft pedigree, the expectations are obviously high with him, and he's expected to be the starter out of the chute there. And this team is expecting a jump out of their offensive line for obvious reasons in 2025 because of all the draft capital they have invested in there. And both of these tackles specifically, Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu, they got to protect those edges for Aaron Rodgers, who at his age can't continue taking big hits moving forward here. We've got to see Aaron Rodgers get sacked hopefully fewer than 40 times, not take some of those crushing hits that he took a couple of times for the Jets last year. So, he didn't play a lot during his rookie season, but the expectations are going to be that he makes progress as if he was around all last season.
I have heard so much buzz from the beat guys basically talking about how the team feels about Fautanu, and they remain super high on this guy. Frankly, there has been more positive press on Fautanu, even knowing it's a first-round pick, and they always get positive press. But going back to last summer, the team was like, we're so high on this guy, we can't believe we have this guy. And I hear comments from guys like Ray Fittipaldo that said, last year before Fautanu got hurt, Pittsburgh considered him their best offensive lineman, even better than Isaac Seumalo, better than Zach Frazier, better than Dan Moore, who just got a big contract in Tennessee. So Pittsburgh has not been shy about hiding their feelings on Fautanu. They believe he can be a stud offensive tackle. Are you as confident in Fautanu's ceiling and upside as the team seems to be?
I mean, once again, we have to go off of the tape that we've seen so far. I mean, his tape was okay against Denver. I didn't think that he knocked it out of the park by any stretch of the imagination. But, you couple that with his college tape and what we saw, what little bit in the preseason and all like that. I mean, I'm as confident. I'm back to where I was after he was drafted, thinking, yeah, this guy could potentially be a starter for the Steelers for the next several years. And, that's where I'm at. I have no reason to be, I don't think, any more optimistic or pessimistic based on where we were a year ago, other than, as you stated, the kind of reporting has been glowing about him heading into this season.
Yeah, I'm not quite where the team seems to be at. And of course, they've seen more behind the scenes than I have. In training camp last year, I thought Fautanu had a good camp. I thought he varied his sets well. He certainly showed he wasn't this young, redshirt sophomore that, Broderick Jones essentially was. That was a lump of clay. He was a senior with a ton of experience that was smart and savvy and knew tricks of the trade and varying his pass set and his hand usage and being able to kind of throw different looks at pass rushers to keep them off balance the way a pass rusher does to a offensive lineman. I thought he was most vulnerable on inside counters. I thought he struggled to be able to redirect and mirror to the inside. So I want to see that improve in training camp, especially. The preseason half, which he played before he hurt his MCL, I thought he was pretty rough against. Now, granted, it was against Houston. He was facing, Will Anderson, I think Daniil Hunter. Those are tough matchups for your first time in, but he did not have a good game in that preseason half and then did not play the rest of the summer. The Denver game, I thought, like you said, was okay, but, coming in, not cold, but playing a whole lot more. It's supposed to be a rotation in that Denver air, and then Jones has that disaster drive, all the penalties. He gets benched. Fautanu finishes it out. I just think that was an okay performance, and then we never got to see him again. So what I've seen from him on the field, I think, has been, there's some signs there, but it's not like I've been wowed and blown away the way the team seems to be talking about. Now, can he get to that point with more time, more reps? Sure, he can. And I really like his tape coming out of Washington. I'm not concerned about the lack of height. He's got arm length. I think he's got, the hand use to be able to overcome any quote unquote concerns over his lack of stature. But I do want to see more from Troy Fautanu, especially in the run game. I don't have a good feel for him as a run blocker. I don't know where he's at. He's capable, but I want to see, can he be that dominant, punishing run blocker?
Yeah, and look, it was limited time. Once again, just 55 snaps in that game against Denver, but I thought his pass blocking was just slightly better than his run blocking. And once again, I thought as a whole, I mean, that game was okay. It wasn't anything to get overly hyped or overly depressed about. And then, at what point did he suffer that injury? Yada yada. And did that play into it and all? But yeah, hopeful, and you ought to be hopeful when you got a first round draft pick invested in a guy like him. Are you concerned a bit about the whole left tackle to right tackle thing?
A little bit, just based on the history of Pittsburgh loving to move these guys around and not always having great results because of it. But if he's as talented as they say he is, then hopefully he'll be able to overcome that. Usually those guys that are uber talented can overcome that. And he looked comfortable to me in the reps I saw last year at right tackle. I didn't see a guy that looked, completely out of sorts. He played right tackle in high school, and so there's at least some background to lean upon, even though he was the left tackle at Washington. I know some people will sit there and say, well, in Washington, Michael Penix was there, and he was a left-handed quarterback, so what's protecting the blind side? But that's not, to me, switching sides is not about blind sides. It's about your footwork, your muscle memory, how you punch, your inside hand, outside hand, post foot. That kind of stuff matters more, and that stuff has to get retrained, and you have to kind of be able to flip things in your head. So, I mean, overall, that's not a big concern to me. So I think he can be a successful right tackle. I don't think that's going to be the reason why he struggles if he were to struggle.
And look, as I stated near the end here, while there should be a lot of optimism when it comes to him in 2025, he's still yet to play a full NFL game. So we've got a lot to learn about Troy Fautanu at the NFL level, and we'll get to learn that right out of the chute in 2025.
Broderick Jones is getting all the spotlight at a left tackle because of the difficult year last year and how important this third season is for him and for the Steelers' future at left tackle. But Fautanu has to play well too. They can't miss on either of these guys. These guys have to be able to be the first-round talent they were drafted to be. And we've heard so much buzz on Fautanu that there are some big expectations to live up to, and he has to do it to protect, again, a 41-year-old quarterback who's not going to be exactly fleet of foot. Got a couple of young tackles that are going to be asked to really step up this season.
Absolutely.
Next on the list is Minkah Fitzpatrick. Just discussed him. The one interception season a year ago that came against Baltimore. Not something that is common for Fitzpatrick, known for his playmaking, his ball hawking skills, but then got hurt in 2023 and then did not have those splash plays in 2024. Are you still confident in Minkah, or are you concerned about this trend of him not making those Minkah-like plays?
Look, a guy at a free safety position is generally measured by the passes that he breaks up, his tackling, how much he's required to do that, and the splash plays. And obviously, over the course of the last two seasons, as stated, he has two takeaways. And for a guy that previous to that, the ball always seeming to find him. It is a little bit of a concern, especially when you look at what he's scheduled to make and all. Do I think he still has it in him to be a guy that can take the football away 5 times during a season? Absolutely, I do. I do think he will benefit from another year, a second year now with Elliott, hopefully with Slay being added to that unit and Porter taking another step. Teams will have to be a little bit more careful of where they go, how often they maybe try to avoid Minkah specifically in the middle of the field. As we've stated several times, it's good that that while Minkah had a 100-something tackle or 90-something tackle or 100-something tackles a couple of years ago, and 90-something next year. I'd much rather Minkah not have to make 90-something tackles in a year. I'd more more apt to the ball carriers or pass catchers not getting that far into defense and all. It'll be interesting to see some of these rotations and all like that. If Minkah can put himself in an opportunity where he's able to make more plays on the football. Long story short, I think he does have it in him to be a 5 takeaway guy, but thinking that and getting it done is two separate things. And as we stated, just earlier in the show there, where are these splash plays going to come from this secondary in 2025 when 5 of them went out the door with Jackson and 4 more came out of a rookie undrafted free agent in Beanie Bishop. So as a whole, am I still bullish on Minkah Fitzpatrick? Yes, but however, as I like to say, the Steelers really need Minkah Fitzpatrick to be as close, if not better, than the 2022 version of himself. And should he have a repeat of his 2023-2024 seasons, and look, he still made the Pro Bowl somehow last year, but I know when that report came out, my eyebrows kind of raised a little bit. But if he has a repeat statistically of 2023 or 2024, and obviously 2023, most of that was wiped out by injury, his future in Pittsburgh beyond the 2025 season will really be up for question come February.
Which we've never had that conversation before about Minkah Fitzpatrick. There's never been a however comma associated with him before. And just to put the numbers on it, in 2021, 124 tackles. Minkah had that year. Last year, 96. If he keeps it under 100, I'll probably take that as a win, assuming he plays all 17 games like he did a year ago. Why do you think the splash wasn't there last season? Was that just random luck? Sometimes you get picked, sometimes you don't. Was it a product of teams playing hide the ball and keep away from him? Or was it Minkah just not capitalizing and not playing to his level of play that we've come to expect from him?
What is yes, Alex?
What do you think was the primary reason? If you had to choose one, I agree that probably all factors are true, but what do you think is the primary reason, the difference?
I can't remember. I just think the opportunities as much weren't there for him overall, especially in the passing game.
Do you think his usage was poor? I know the beat guys talk about that a lot. He's not being used correctly. Is that a fair assessment?
I think to some degree, and plus, how much confidence did they have in Cameron Sutton was brutal. Was Minkah. How much did Minkah really try to cheat some things?
What issues do you think there were from the team schematically that didn't put him in positions to succeed?
I think they could have done, and I always think this about any defense, just, pre-snap disguise and post-snap rotations. How effective can those be, especially when you had a new combo last year? Are they able to rotate those guys down enough and maybe surprise quarterbacks? The element of surprise, especially against some of these veteran quarterbacks in the NFL, means a lot. Quarterback expects you to be here, and you end up not there. You end up somewhere else. I think all of it boils together. I can't how many interceptable, I'm trying to roll back through my head, how many interceptable balls were there that Minkah did not come down with last year? 2, maybe?
I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and think. There's nothing that comes obviously to mind where he dropped the pass. Maybe he did, and I just am forgetting about it. But, how many of those existed in 2022? Because, they weren't trying to throw the ball to him in 2022, and he still had 6 interceptions. So what is the difference? I think schematically, I didn't have a big complaint about it. I had a complaint in 2023 when he was used in the box so often, and so he couldn't patrol center field and couldn't play robber and pick off some of those passes. I thought last year they got back to more true free safety because of DeShon Elliott was the every down strong safety. My only thought about schematics was that first half of the season with Beanie Bishop, they couldn't do as much, post-snap, as you said, rotations because they didn't want, Beanie to have to kind of spin up and play safety. They could do that better in years past when they had more flexibility, more veteran guys they would trust. And, even Cam Sutton provided some of that schematically in the second half of the season off suspension. His season was poor, but he could at least, he's comfortable playing safety. He's done that before in post-snap looks. And so they were able to explore that more once Sutton came back. But to me, the schematics weren't the issue. I disagree with a lot of the beat guys that say that. I think Minkah was a little more hesitant than usual. I think maybe some emphasis was don't give up the big play. In 2023, Pittsburgh's passing game gave up a ton of big plays. They were one of the worst offenders in football. Granted, the safeties were hurt. Minkah was hurt, and that was one reason for it. But that, I'm sure, was a point of emphasis in 2024, and Pittsburgh overall kept a lid on things. And so I think some of it was Minkah just wanting to make sure don't get beat deep and secure things top down. And I thought he was a little more hesitant to jump routes and make the big play and take the chance and the educated guess of let's make the opportunity happen here than he was in years past.
All right. I mean, they obviously played, a lot of zone, right?
I have a study on that coming for Monday. Our Clayton Ecker did a great job pulling some of the coverage data for us. They played a lot of single high. I think they had the second highest single high rate in the NFL. That's cover 3 and cover 1. So, it's a combination of man and zone coverage, but it was a lot of single high, which you would expect. Minkah is the post safety, and that's what he's done throughout his Steelers career, essentially.
Yeah, I should quantify that. A lot of Minkah just being manning the middle of the field.
Right. That's been his role, but it also was his role in 2019 and 2020 and 2022. And that's who he is. That's how this defense is structured. It's a single high defense, and he's made plays still because of that. Now, it's not that he's always making picks from true center field. It's a lot of robbing and spinning down and taking away crossers. He's gotten picks off of that before. But there was one play, I keep forgetting the team. It was the Jets or the Colts, but it was maybe a third down play at the sticks. The receiver's running a curl at the first down marker, and Minkah, he had a chance to go for the pick. Like, he reads it, he breaks on the ball, but he just makes the tackle instead. And that was kind of my thought on one play to define his season. It was more about playing it a little more safe and making the tackle than trying to go for the big play.
Yep.
And I still think he had a good year. I think he's a great tackler. That's such an underrated part of this game. He never gets credit for how consistent and reliable of a open field tackler he is, and that is so key to preventing good plays from becoming great plays. But obviously, he's got to bring the splash.
Right. And as stated, if you go another year with him only taking the ball away 1 or 2 times, a lot of eyebrows are going to be raised specifically because of what he's done in the past and the position that he plays. You think of those center fielders in the NFL, of the good ones find a way to break up the pass or come away with the with the interception there. So I think he still has it in it. Look, and as I stated in the first sentence of the outlook here, Fitzpatrick will look to flip the narrative that he can no longer be an impactful NFL free safety, and especially when it comes to making splash plays. And at the very least, I think Minkah needs to have more consistent play throughout the 2025 season, especially against the pass.
If 2025 mirrors 2024, and I would call it, by Minkah standards, just an average season, and there is going to be a conversation about should he be on roster in 2026, which I think will take place. I think that will have more validity, at least in the public discourse. Whether or not the team makes the move, who's to say? But then how do you replace Minkah Fitzpatrick? Internally, there's no replacement right now.
Right. You'd either have to go back out in free agency or you'd have to draft one high.
And if you're drafting one high, add that to the list of needs, which right now sits with quarterback atop that list, and maybe offensive line and maybe receiver and corner. So I do wonder if the team would seriously have an appetite to make a move and move on from Minkah after 2025, unless the season is really bad, because replacing him and having that giant void on the roster and all the intangibles that Minkah brings and breaking up the Minkah Elliott combo, it's a big ask, I think, to ask somebody else to go in and fill that role.
Look, if he just has a season that kind of mirrors this past one, is he going to get cut? No, I don't envision that. But once again, the discussion about lucrative contract extension, especially one that would make him once again the highest paid or second highest paid safety in the NFL. So it's hard to sell that aspect of it.
Right, that's going to be a non-starter, I think. But you're going to hear, at least in the media and Steeler fan circles, say, "Go cut this guy. He's washed. He's not the playmaker he was." If he
Sure,
has
you
the
already have
season,
that now, you know?
sure, and it'll only intensify if 2025 is more like 2024 as opposed to 2022.
Look, he won't turn 29 until midway through this season. So, you know, you would think he's still got some years left in that tank.
Sure. My overall stance is I'm confident in Minkah that he can bounce back and return to form the way that I was, say, TJ Watt off his injury a couple years back, the way I was with Cam Hayward this time a year ago off injury. Minkah's not coming off injury, but I still think he can certainly bounce back. I'm confident. I think he will, but you do need to see it. So I do want to make that point too.
All right. And once again, you know, these two, Fitzpatrick and Elliott, be expected to perform like one of the best safety tandems in the NFL right now, in my book.
Sure, and they complement each other well. I think they really can be a strong duo. Not quite at the Troy Clark level, but hopefully not too far off from that if both guys play up to standard.
Okay.
Year 2 for center Zach Frazier, and a really strong rookie year he had, getting the job after Nate Herbig went down with that crazy freak training camp injury. Literally in the last hour of training camp last year, in that last practice day, like 3 guys got hurt. Herbig was done for the year. Jonathan Ward hurt his hamstring or calf or something. I think somebody else went down. Just a weird end to training camp last year that opened the door for Frazier. He ran with it. He was going to probably eventually jump Herbig at some point, even if Herbig stayed healthy, regardless. But Frazier played well, had the ankle injury, slowed him down a little bit, missed 2 games, came back after the bye. But an excellent year for Zach Frazier, Dave.
I agree. I don't think, look, the way he ended up playing goes to show that he probably should have been a first-round draft pick, right? And at the very least, let you know that this team got a steal when it comes to, second round there. The only real negative that I have to say overall when it comes to him is he did play 17 games. That's it when it comes to him. And obviously you hope that he does. It's reasonable to expect him to get even better in 2025, his second NFL season. Yes, he'll have a new quarterback to work with, but at least it's a veteran one in Aaron Rodgers. I don't see that being an issue come the start of the regular season. Expect him to be a better run blocker, a better pass protector. I thought he was good in both those areas. I think he had 4 penalties last year, and 2 of them were ineligible men downfield kind of stuff, which we know this team has kind of struggled in the screen game and timing of things and all like that with the ineligible stuff down the field over the last couple years. So I imagine they'll work a lot on the timing to try to get that cleaned up. I think one other penalty was a hold, and if memory serves me, that might have been a questionable one. And I think one other one was a tripping one, which I think even that was.
Oh yeah, against the Eagles, right? Yeah, that was
Yeah.
such like a cut block, and yeah, it was a bad call.
Right. So I'm not worried about him from a penalty aspect or any, along those lines there. And look, this guy very well could be a Pro Bowl first team All Pro if things go the way we think it might.
Is there any area to improve? It felt like it was such a solid year. You wonder,
I'd just
okay,
like to
what's
see
the
him
next
stay
step?
on some of these second level stuff out in blocking out in space and all like that. But I mean, it's hard. It's hard to get ticky tack with a guy that was arguably one of the top 3 centers in the NFL. I thought last year.
I'm with you. I need to probably go back through his film. I need to do that on some of the last year's rookies, Peyton Wilson, Zach Frazier. I thought pass pro was not quite as strong as run blocking. Thought he got beat a couple times, dropped his head. The lack of length is going to hurt him a little bit there in some of those one-on-one battles. But overall, it was a really strong year. It beat my expectations. And, I like the kid coming out of West Virginia. I thought he had a high floor. I thought he was a Ben Jones type that could be a 10-year solid starter, but maybe not one of those upper echelon guys. I think I was wrong, Dave. I think he can be a multi-time Pro Bowler. Now, can he be the next great Steelers center trademark? Can he be Webster or Dawson or even Pouncey? That's still probably, I want to see more before I make that declaration or even kind of open that door. But can he be a multi-time Pro Bowler? Yes, he can. I think he probably makes a Pro Bowl in 2025 and probably many more after that.
Look, he just needs to fine tune his game coming into this year and running pass blocking. There's no reason to think that he won't be one of the highest graded centers in the NFL on a week to week basis. And you obviously hope that he can play all 17 games, stay healthy. The Steelers, without a doubt, have a lot invested in their offensive line, as we've said several times via draft. Seems to be a huge hit, and so far potentially the man who man the middle of that team's offensive lines, for several more years to come. We hope.
And what a start to his career. His quarterbacks have been Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. So that was 2 years in to work with those two veterans, and that makes communication key. And who's going to make line calls this year? I assume it'll be Frazier, but will Rodgers have a hand in that? How those guys work together and stay on the same page? And when you're facing they play Minnesota. Oh, yeah, it was the Ireland. They play in Ireland. When they're facing Brian Flores and all that he throws at you, being able to figure that stuff out. Rodgers had his lumps against the Vikings last year. They got him a couple times, including on a pick six. So that's going to be really key, the communication aspect and working with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, look, I mean, if you want anybody to tie your wagon to that could first-time All-Pro, first-time Pro Bowler for this team in 2025, it's easy to circle Zach Frazier's name, I think. Really excited. I'm excited just to watch his tape again, this coming year. And once again, I don't think, new quarterback's going to be much of a concern for him overall. In fact, he might learn a thing or two from Aaron Rodgers when it comes to those line calls. So very excited about Zach Frazier, very bullish on him. That's why I had him as my first round draft pick in my mock draft a couple of years ago. But it feels like they got a steal in the second round with him.
Good point on Frazier getting to learn from Rodgers. We talk so much about, Will Howard learning from Aaron Rodgers, the receivers learning from Aaron Rodgers, the line can learn from Aaron Rodgers, and certainly the center, Zach Frazier, can learn from Aaron Rodgers. So I'm with you there. Nasty physical run blocker that really embodies the type of offense Pittsburgh wants to be. Let's jump to tight end Pat Freiermuth. Got his extension right before the 2024 season. Last year had a solid year, found the end zone more often, wasn't spectacular, but a classic good year for Pat Freiermuth.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to Pat Freiermuth coming off of this extension that he signed last off season, right before the season started, he goes out and has a very kind of Pat Freiermuth season, if you will, and he ended up catching, what was it, 65 regular season receptions, 653 yards, 7 touchdowns on 78 total targets. That was a career year for him in the receptions department, as was his 8.4 yards per target. He obviously stayed healthy after missing 5 games the previous season. Registered 776 regular season offensive snaps, which was also a career high for him. They moved him around a lot in 2024. He wound up playing slightly more snaps in the slot than he did in line or out wide. His blocking still leaves a lot to be desired, especially as an in-line guy. I think he is what he is at this point. Here's where I come down for his outlook for this season. He's averaged 3.6 receptions per game for his NFL career and 35.9 yards receiving per game per well. Because of that, in addition to Aaron Rodgers now being this team's quarterback, I don't think there's any reason to think that he won't at least equal those two averages in 2025. Could see those go up even a little higher, something around 4 receptions per game on average, maybe 40 yards per receiving contest as well. Expect anywhere between, 5 and 9 touchdowns from him. If he stays healthy, I don't think there's any reason to think this won't be a career statistic year for him. Could very well finish second on the team in receptions and maybe even receiving yardage again. I just would like to see if he can improve this run blocking.
Do you think he was underutilized in this offense last year, or do you think his utilization was just right?
They could have stood to probably use him a little bit more, tad bit more.
I'll just repeat what I've said before. I think they could have used him downfield more often. He was a little too underneath, a little too over the ball route, a little too 8-yard catch, which was like his rookie year. I want to see it more like his sophomore season where he was used down the seam more often and kind of have a chance to make some bigger plays. I don't think he was given those opportunities quite as often or as frequently as he should have been. But I do think they had a focused intent to get him the football. He was split out more often. He was used in 3-by-1 backside and some one-on-one matchups. They looked up for him in the red zone on third down. He caught 7 touchdowns. So I think my main complaint is I want to see a little more downfield usage from Pat Freiermuth.
All right. But I mean, you agree this could be very well a career year for him, right? No reason to think otherwise.
I think it can. I mean, I think his numbers will basically be his numbers. They've been so similar in all the years he's been healthy, right? I mean, it's kind of crazy how close he's gotten to repeating his numbers, throwing out 2023 in which he got hurt. 60 receptions, 63 receptions, 65 receptions, the yardage. That's changed a little bit. 497 his rookie year. That was in Ben's Dink and Dunk final season. 732 his second season. 653 last year. 7 touchdowns in 2021. 7 touchdowns last year. So there's been a lot of copy and pasting on his numbers. I think they're going to be similar. Can they still technically be career highs? Can he catch 70 balls for 750 yards? And I don't think he'll break the touchdown mark, but can he get 5 to 7 touchdowns? Yeah, I get that. That's certainly possible. So I think he'll have a good year. I want to see just a little more splash from Pat Freiermuth.
Do you think he can average 4 receptions per game and 40 yards receiving per game? That's reachable.
What does that work out to for a season? 680 yards and 68 receptions? Yeah, I think he can.
All right. That's where I'm at on him. Once again, like to see him, but you agree he is what he is as a blocker right now?
Yeah, I don't have any delusions of grandeur that he's going to become a better run blocker. He's a good blocker in space. You made that point before. Inline, not so much. Is it passable, though, as a run blocker? How would you define as run blocking? It's not great. We know that.
I mean, it's, what did Bill Parcells say several years ago? Sometimes you just want these guys to get in the guy's way, and that's all it takes. I mean, can he do that more times than not? Yeah. I believe so. So, I mean, I think it's adequate. It's adequate. I just would like to see it kind of get a little bit better.
Do you think it will get better?
No.
Me neither. There's a good comment from Arthur Smith when I wrote that article on him about what he wants out of his tight end. Let me try to find it in terms of a blocker. If I can pull it up here, give me 1 second. I try to go through all my notes. He says, here's what he's looking for in a tight end. This is what he told a clinic back in 2021 when he was in Atlanta. Quote, he says they don't have to be amazing blockers, but willing and competent. They have to be able to displace the Sam linebacker on wide zone. Smith says they can't be a team that only runs open, as into the weak side and away from the tight end. He has to be able to run strong side. Does Freiermuth check that box? Is he somebody you can run to the strength of the formation as opposed to running away from it?
Not consistently.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Can he displace the linebacker on wide zone? And I was going to use your phrase, not consistently. So but you see him split out a lot. That's why you see Darnell Washington get a ton of inline work. And, that's probably the best way to go about it, to have the best of both worlds with Freiermuth as a receiver and Washington as your primary blocker.
I wish I could find that quote by Bill Belichick several years ago on tight ends and blocking. I can't, though. I thought I had it in my Twitter feed somewhere, but I can't find it. But, yeah, look, I mean, a good player just would be an even better player doing the things that he's already done, plus becoming a better run blocker, especially when running to his side.
Is it a good thing, though, that Arthur Smith is so multiple tight end heavy because it's taken less off the plate of Freiermuth as a blocker? Because if you were 11 personnel, then Freiermuth's going to be your inline tight end, your Y a lot more often, which I think would, as you're agreeing to, magnify his blocking issues.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the usage last year where he was in the slot more than he was in line. That's ideal.
It's telling. I think was it over 50? Yeah, over 50% last year in terms of slot versus inline work. So that may continue, probably will continue in 2025. All right, next on the list is new running back Kenneth Gainwell, signed a 1-year deal over from Philadelphia. Guy that can do kick returns, can catch, can wear a lot of hats for this offense and special teams, Dave.
Yeah, and I think as you noted in the one of the original write-ups on him, played quite a bit on third down behind Barkley and all with the Eagles. Finished the year with 75 rushes, 290 yards, one touchdown, 16 receptions for 116 yards. He also returned 18 kickoffs during the regular season for a solid 25.3 yard average. Chipped in 16 total touches on the playoff run for the Eagles for another 68 yards. The Steelers got to see firsthand about what you can do with Gainwell when you get the ball to him out in space. He logged 301 regular season snaps in 2024 with 114 others coming on special teams. He's rushed 280 total times for 1,185 yards and 12 touchdowns, caught another 102 passes. This is where I come in on him right now. I'm probably not as bullish as you are on him. His pass blocking isn't great, so that'll be a concern when he's put into those situations. But I do believe that he is a guy that situationally, down, distance, whatever, that you're going to want to get out on the field to get the ball out in his hands, out in space, and utilize some of the things that he does well. All that said, now look, they signed him obviously before they drafted Caleb Johnson. It's a minimal value contract, so there's nothing really to be said about that. He is a guy that you would think that when you start reporting those return lines this summer at training camp, I would expect him to have a shot at that. He doesn't give you a lot of special teams value outside of being a kickoff returner, so you kind of are rooting for him if he's going to get a helmet on a weekly basis to do more than just 5, 6, 7 snaps a game on offense. I am kind of thinking that he's going to get every opportunity to be the kickoff guy here. Assuming Jaylen Warren and Caleb Johnson both remain healthy, I could see Gainwell getting a little burn early in the season on offense, and perhaps that tailing off the more that Caleb Johnson gets used to things. It's hard to imagine in my head when I sit here right now, Alex. It's hard for me to imagine Gainwell garnering more than 100 offensive snaps in 2025.
I agree, but how confident are you the whole backfield stays healthy all season?
I mean, once again, based on if everybody stays healthy, I mean, that's obviously a big if.
Sure. I'm just saying practically someone's probably going to miss some amount of time at some point that opens the door for Gainwell to play more.
Okay.
And it just seems reasonable to me. I mean, I think we were spoiled by Najee Harris never missing time in 4 years, which is unheard of for a primary running back.
Okay. Well, even if Warren misses a game or Caleb misses a game, I mean, 100 snaps. I don't know if he can get there.
I'm just interested to see how much they game plan for Gainwell's strengths in particular. How many plays do you kind of put in for your third string running back who's got some interesting traits and skill set, but he's still your third string running back? Are you going to design stuff for him in the pass game where he's split out? Are you going to run screens with him? You can. I'm just curious to see how you divide it up. How much do you try to really make an effort to get this guy the ball?
Look, here's the thing that I end with too, and this goes back to kind of that recent study that you did or the rabbit hole we went down. I think at the end of this season, we could be talking about Gainwell having more catches than rush attempts.
Yeah, possible. It'd be interesting if he did. And I make that last comment about scheming him versus not, just to see how much of his snaps and involvement will be organic, where he just naturally rotates in and just runs the same plays as the other guys, or are they going to, design some stuff up for him because he can do things the other guys can't, where he can split out, he can win a one-on-one more quick than fast. And, I think he's a pretty good receiver out of the backfield going back to his Memphis days, where Memphis has a long tradition of running backs that can be multi-versatile, Gibson and Gainwell and others. And so I just want to see how Pittsburgh, how creative they get with him and how often they use that creativity. I will maybe disagree with one thing, though. I think he can be a kick coverage guy. He had 5 tackles last year, 82 snaps on kick coverage. And so I think he could potentially be used there as well.
All right. We'll see how much burn he gets in that area of the game.
Is it a good thing if Gainwell does not play a lot, though? Is that kind of the thought to kind of wrap a bow on him?
I think it is. Yeah, I think I'd like to see him situationally and a guy that you can throw out there in certain, down distant situations and look, you can't have the red flashing light on his helmet that every time he goes in a game you're splitting him out or trying to get the football in his hands. He's going to have snaps other than that. But I think he does give you a good option as a receiver in certain situations. I don't want to see him back there pass protecting a lot, but I think he is a guy that you can carve out a couple of plays a game, get him on the field for five offensive snaps a game. What's 5 times 17?
Oh, a lot of math here today. That's 85.
Right. So
Am I right on that? There we go.
Not even 100, but you get him out there enough and get the ball in his hands, out in space, up to the tune of, I don't know, 12, 14 receptions, 16 receptions, something like that.
I'd be curious to kind of go back to that Minnesota team. Pittsburgh's facing a lot of aggressive DCs early in this schedule, the Vikings being the most obvious. Do you use him more to kind of force Brian Flores to tip his hand and not be able to mug those linebackers in the A gap and have to, walk somebody out that helps clear the picture for what defensive scheme you're going to see? I wonder if you use Gainwell more in those situations to have a better and clearer defensive picture, but we'll see about that. How good of a runner do you think Gainwell is? We talk so much about him as a returner, which I think he will be, as a receiver, which he will be. How good of a running back is Kenneth Gainwell?
I think he can. I think he can run any scheme that you need. I think he can run in between the tackles. I think he's done enough of that to prove that he can. Do I think he can be a bell cow, carry the ball 20 times a game type guy? No.
I don't think he's a great runner. I mean, he's certainly not a bell cow. I think we're all in agreement there, but he's an inside the tackles guy. He's small, not a lot of power. The long speed isn't there. A little bit of burst in his game, some shiftiness, but as a runner, I'm pretty lukewarm on him.
I mean, I don't think we're going to see him carry the football 30, 40 times,
What if somebody gets hurt? I mean, what if, knock on wood, one of these guys misses a month with the hamstring pull? Warren missed how many games last year? Gainwell's going to have to get snaps.
Yeah, but I'd want to lean on whoever's not hurt, Warren or Caleb.
Do you think it would be more of a Steelers old school workhorse back approach if one of the top two guys went down and less of the committee they've been doing in recent years?
Yeah, I think there's a possibility of that because once again, I don't know how much I want Gainwell out there in pass protection on third down.
I don't think he's a terrible pass protector. He's small, and there's some issues when he faces some of these bigger linebackers, but I think he kind of holds his own.
He misses though bad.
Yeah, that's fair.
Think.
That's fair. I'm with you. So interesting to see who gets third down duties this year. It's been Warren in the past. Will he continue those? Will it be a split of Warren and Gainwell? It won't be Caleb Johnson. You wouldn't think, not out of the gate, I should say. But I do want to kind of see how that third down distribution gets worked out to become.
Do you think he'll be the kickoff returner?
I do. One of those two guys back there. I mean, if not him, then who else is going to be back there? And he did the last year was okay. He should be one of those two guys. Yeah.
All right. Last name on the list is. Are you more bullish on him than I am, or are we about the same on Gainwell?
I think we're about the same. I mean, I've talked up his receiving ability. You sound higher on him as a runner than I am. We probably equal each other out, balance each other out. Probably about the same. Like he'll be a piece. He'll make a couple plays, but he's not going to be the focal point of this offense, obviously.
All
right, last name on the list. One of my guys I'm excited for, Dave, undrafted rookie free agent out of South Dakota, JJ Galbreath. I think Dave, even if you look at I'm going to toot our own horn here for a second. If you look at other draft outlets, even the most hardcore ones like Dane Brugler's draft guide, which is fantastic. We love it each year. You look at Emery Hunt's, draft guide, which is so thorough and so deep on all these guys that I've never heard from like D3 schools before. I think we were the only site to have a scouting report, a full-fledged scouting report on JJ Galbreath. I just found him by chance. It was during our small school week. I liked their running back a lot, and I saw Galbreath make some plays. I was like, who's this tight end? Let's go scout him. So this is a guy that's gotten some buzz this spring, has a good connection with Will Howard. I really want to watch JJ Galbreath come training camp.
Yeah, definitely one of the undrafted free agents, the few that they signed again this year. Seems to be a better class, kind of top to bottom when it comes to that. Galbreath, I'm less bullish on him than you are. I know for sure after watching more of his tape there. South Dakota product, 45 career games, 30 starts, 93 passes for 1,355 yards, nice average of 14.6, 12 touchdowns, 48 of those receptions and 9 touchdowns came in his final 2 college seasons. He did miss, 4 games, I think, last year due to, I couldn't find out what that injury
It was a
was.
shoulder injury.
Okay. All right, shoulder injury. Uh, Pro day was not a combine invite. A little bit undersized, 6'3", 3/8", 231. 32-inch arms on him. Had a nice. He stacked up fine athletically. Other than that, definitely with the shuttle time and the 3-cone drill. Just did 12 reps on the bench. Mostly used as an inline tight end, especially the last 2 years, I think, at South Dakota. Lined up in the slot, out wide as a detached tight end throughout his college career. In my opinion, exits college as a below average run blocker and more of a receiving threat than anything. And I think even with the injury to Donald Parham Jr., the Achilles, and being a nice receiving threat and a guy that you could use kind of as a move tight end option, I think his run blocking needs a lot of refinement. And those 32-inch arms won't help. Who was the kid, the Georgia kid that had the shorter arms that I was high on that's still in the league?
Charlie Warner?
Charlie Warner. Can he Charlie Warner this thing together? I kind of have, Charlie Warner ended up, he's still around the game
Mm-hmm.
and all like that. He's going to have a Charlie Warner type of run at this thing. He's got some experience on special teams. I don't think that's a part of the game that's going to be a huge asset overall. He's going to have to make one hell of a mark during training camp and the preseason. Maybe get some help as far as an injury or something, in my opinion, to make the 53-man roster. I do think, however, that he's going to be a prime practice squad candidate. I'm just less bullish than you are on him, primarily because of his run blocking.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm probably more excited on Galbreath than you are, but I think we come to the same conclusion of really good practice squad material. I think 53-man roster is going to be tough to do just because is the special teams value there enough to beat out a Connor Hayward? Maybe if this team keeps 4 tight ends, but if they keep 3 and then a fullback and say DJ Thomas Jones, where I think there's a more distinct possibility of that happening than keeping Galbreath as that 4th tight end. I think his run blocking, it's not the reason why Pittsburgh signed him. He's a receiver first. He's that more new age move tight end that's really athletic, runs good routes, tracks the football well, tested well at his pro day. Sheldon White had that South Dakota tour. He was up all the Dakotas during that pro day stint, and he was there and scouted him. But I think the run blocking, there's effort, and there's some pancakes on tape. He finishes his blocks, he runs his feet, and so there's some 1-2 and some effort. It kind of goes back to that Arthur Smith definition of, can you be competent? Can you finish? Can you displace the Sam? I think he can. Maybe not currently, but I think he can certainly get to that point at the NFL level. And so he's a guy that was versatile. They had an OC change in South Dakota, I think 2 years ago, and that really unlocked Galbreath and took his game to a whole new level. And he was still productive last year despite missing a month with that shoulder injury. His first game back after the injury, he had a touchdown catch immediately. And so this guy was just a playmaker, a big-time producer at a small school. And yeah, it's South Dakota. It's not a big school, but there's been a lot of FCS tight ends that have come out and had success. Dallas Goedert, Tucker Kraft, Zach Davidson, I think. I mean, there's been several names I'm missing too. And so don't count this guy out. I think he's going to make some plays this summer.
All right. I'm more interested. I mean, look, this is a good undrafted class, like we said, and a lot of these guys I look forward to learning more about. That's why I'm a big fan of preseason games, because you get to go to training camp, you get to watch all that. I get to pick your brain when it comes to that, but there's nothing like seeing these guys in game circumstances, and more than likely preseason is the only time I'm going to get to see him outside of some clips here and there from training camp there. So I'm really interested to see. I think he'll get a lot of burn during the preseason if he stays healthy and all like that. And I'm interested to see how that blocking is, especially against some of these bigger base defensive ends and all.
And even for me, I love training camp, but give me preseason action. How do you do inside a stadium when a coach is not 5 feet away from you? When you go back to the huddle and say, "What was that call?" or go over something, no, don't have the hand holding of training camp to be inside a stadium and to be in a true blue football environment to see how these guys do. That is really important. It's why we are the last two people I think in the world, Dave, that want more preseason games. And where it's a losing battle, we're not going to win. They're going to go to 2 here soon once they go to an 18-game schedule. But I think it's a really important part of the evaluation that camp and joint practices cannot simulate.
I think we come down the same on this. If we were to do a 53-man roster prediction right now today, he's probably not on it, but he is a member of the practice squad.
Yeah, that's where I think he ultimately falls. I just had a thought and I just lost it. I was going to ask you something, Dave. But I was going to say, whenever Parham got hurt, they never replaced him with a tight end, right? They never signed back a tight end. So they're one shorter at tight end, which will mean more reps for guys like JJ Galbreath.
Yeah, I remember there was all that hubbub about Miami and
right. Yeah, they could.
And we'll see if anything comes to fruition there.
Yeah, so far they've not added somebody. They could certainly do that, and JJ Galbraith's not going to prevent this team from making a move clearly. But just as of right now, entering camp, there could be some more reps. And what is your tight end depth chart? It's Freiermuth, it's Darnell Washington, Connor Hayward, Galbraith. DJ Thomas Jones is kind of a hybrid H-back, but probably more fullback. Am I missing a tight end? After Parham got hurt?
Let's roll down through the roster real quick.
If not, you're pretty light with 4 tight ends, one of them being Connor Hayward, which is still to me more, he's in the tight end room, as far as I know, at least the last word, but more H-back.
Yeah, look, if any of these go, I tell you what, he can't afford to go down during the preseason. That's or training camp. He's gonna have to stay up. They're more. I'll make a bold prediction here. We'll see a tight end or 2 added to this offseason roster between now and week 1 of the season. Just because of bodies and somebody getting nicked up. Because that's, as you mentioned, and we haven't gotten to him in the 90 and 30 yet. But DJ Thomas Jones will be an interesting discussion when we get to him as well. But they are light overall in that tight end fullback room.
Heck, could they add somebody before camp? That 4 tight ends is pretty thin to go into camp that way. So, especially again with Hayward and Galbraith not really being true inline guys. I mean, I think they'll probably get some use there. Galbraith will play with his hand down a little bit, but yeah, it wouldn't shock me if they made a move before camp.
All
right, Dave. Anything else? Any other news coming in? I think it's been pretty light overall, but we made a show out of it.
All right, we did. We'll get to some emails, see if there's any in here to close out today's show. Let me cycle through this real quick. And it says, Mike Shorter writes in, hope you're having a great summer. Please respond to these special team-minded statements. Yes, no, or maybe. Boy, you know how to get right at Alex there. Steelers will be better than 2024 stat of 23.0 kickoff return average. Yes, no, or maybe.
Yes, because it's hard to be worse than that under these new kickoff rules. Pittsburgh was not only last in the NFL in kick return yardage, but last by like a yard and a half or so. So there's some upward mobility there. And so I think they'll at least close that pretty low bar.
All right. I will say yes as well, too. They will be better than the 2024 stat of 10.3 punt return average. Interesting here.
I hadn't looked at all the numbers year over year. I will say no, because obviously the punt return touchdown Austin had last year helps that number a decent amount. But your odds of getting another aren't great, just for any team. So I'll probably say it won't be bad, but maybe a little bit lower than that.
Calvin Austin was 10.3 last year, right? And he had a long of 73 as one of the, like you said, they would have to break another long one or 2. It feels like for that to happen. So I will say no, but I'm at least hoping it to be 9.3.
Yeah, I think somewhere 9.5 to high 9s is probably a good number to expect.
The Steelers will have more than 1 Pro Bowl player on special teams in 2025. I will say no. Whoa, wait a minute here.
You got Boz, Killebrew.
Yeah, Boz, Killer. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to think that Boz potentially won't be, and Killebrew's already made a name for himself and gotten there on his own that way. Okay, I will say yes.
I will say maybe. I'll hedge my bets. I think they'll have at least one. Boswell most likely, but Killebrew made the Pro Bowl each of the last 2 years. Reputation can help a little bit. I'll say maybe.
The Steelers will be better than the 2024 stats of 41 field goals made and a 93.2 field goal percentage. This is a tricky question here. I don't want them to be better than 41 field goals made in 2025. So I'm going to say no there. And I'm hoping that when Boswell does go out there, they're it's few and far between, and there are a lot more shorter makeable type stuff. Not that he was missing those kind of things last year. So I'm going to say no on the field goals made, but yes on a higher field goal percentage than 93.2%.
Yeah, it's how do you define better? In some ways, a lower number is better. And it's like golf. Let's have a lower number of field goals, and hopefully that means more touchdowns for Pittsburgh. So I'll say kidding 41 is just tough. That was the second most ever, I think, by a kicker. I believe that was right behind David Akers, who had the all-time record. So I'll say lower number of field goals, whether or not you call it better or not, is, I guess, up for semantics debate. But the percentage, I mean, 93 is a pretty high bar.
That's a
One
strong
miss
number.
can change things. I mean, Boswell's been above 93% in several seasons: 2019, 2020, 2023, 2024. I'll say I'll say a little under though. I mean, maybe like 2021, he made 36 of 40 field goals. That puts you right at 90%. I'll say just under, but still a good year for Chris Boswell.
All right, he says, would you be willing to write an article about expectations for special teams with the additions of Harrison, Eccles, Bruner, Castro, Gainwell, etc.? Maybe we'll do something like that closer to the season. I mean, as we go through these 90 and 30 series, we're talking a little bit about the special teams contributions each of these players are supposed to make. So yeah, I mean, look, special teams very important to the Steelers and in the NFL, and especially when we get to carving out our 53-man roster predictions. So, Mike, there'll be no shortage of special teams contribution discussions and all like that.
Yeah, maybe I'll write something about it before training camp begins, but we'll certainly keep an eye on it throughout training camp and the summer.
All right, Brogan from Iowa. On Wednesday's episode, you each laid out the principles for Super Bowl contenders. Dave said average quarterback, top 10 D, strong running game, turnover differential. Based on those four, I want you to rank the AFC North teams in terms of contenders. He says, I personally go Ravens, Steelers, Bengals, Browns. I don't know how anyone can rank the Bengals ahead of Pittsburgh as top to bottom. Their roster is worse. Their defense is worse than it was last year, and their offense didn't improve any. A great quarterback, two great wide receivers, and a terrible offensive line. The Steelers' offense will be better if Rodgers can stay healthy. Long story short, he thinks the Bengals are overrating the Bengals in comparison. I'll just boil it down to this, man. That offense is that offense, and that's a lot of what we were talking about. Why the Bengals are probably going to considered Super Bowl contenders, because that offense is so potent, even with that offensive line of theirs.
Now, his question is to rank it in terms of Super Bowl contention. Is that what the question is?
Yeah, I guess based on the criteria that I laid out there on what makes a Super Bowl contending team: average quarterback, top 10 D, strong running game, and turnover differential, and all. So he's basing it on my four principles that I laid out there. He says that if we use my principles, it should be Ravens, Steelers, Bengals, Browns. He makes a great argument there, because two of mine are top 10 D and turnover differential. So I mean, he does make a strong argument based on what I laid out there. But I kind of feel that average quarterback play kind of gets offset a little bit because of the Bengals and the weapons that they have. But I mean, he does make a strong argument based on the four principles that I laid out there.
Yeah, I was curious what the Bengals' turnover differential was last year. They were +3, but Pittsburgh was +16. That was second best in the NFL behind Buffalo. So, okay, if we were using Dave's criteria, then yes, it'd be Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Cleveland. I still would argue, and it sounds a little hypocritical, but from the standpoint of not using that criteria, but just overall, either my criteria or just overall thoughts, the Bengals have a better chance to make a Super Bowl run than Pittsburgh because their ceiling as a team is higher. That defense can be even just average, which we'll see is a big question mark, but if it can, and that offense is what it typically is, potent, high scoring, dangerous, they have the potential to go on a run because they have the offense. It's a scoring league. They have the quarterback, and that makes the big difference. But I still think Pittsburgh has a chance to be the second team in the AFC North because their floor is higher. The Bengals are a little more boom bust. Pittsburgh's a little more stuck in the middle, but high floor, low ceiling type of a team that means they're probably going to win 8 to 10 games. In probably 9 or 10 because they always win 9 or 10 games.
All right, that's right. Along those same lines, that's kind of the conclusion I get to. I would still, as far as ranking them in the AFC North, as far as Super Bowl contenders, it would go Ravens, Bengals, Steelers, and then Browns.
If you rank, though, how you predict the AFC North will shake out by year's end, would you rank it the same way?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at right now.
You would still have the Bengals over Pittsburgh in second place. Okay.
Would you?
I think I'll have Pittsburgh over Cincinnati, which I know it sounds, like I said, super hypocritical, and I just put them above in the Super Bowl bucket, but they're, to me, kind of two different schools of thought. Super Bowl contention versus overall regular season finish. If that makes sense.
So, I mean, basically, you're thinking 3 of the top 3 teams make the playoffs then.
There's a good chance of that, sure.
All right. Tim from, where's Tim from? Virginia. Love the show and wanted to know. All I want for Christmas in July is for Aaron Rodgers to download his brain into Will Howard and Mason Rudolph from now until they win the Super Bowl. Do you know if Rodgers invited Howard and or Rudolph to Malibu with the receivers? And number 2, and can you share any perspective about what these types of actions, these gatherings really work on? Thanks, and keep up the terribly good work, Tim. All right, Tim. Thanks for getting in our emails today. I do not know yet. We do not know yet if Rudolph and Howard have been invited to Malibu. My hope is that they are, along with several other receivers. I don't know why you wouldn't invite them when it comes to that. And I don't have any perspective about what they do work on in those gatherings. I've got some guesses that they're going over route combinations and timing and making sure you're breaking your routes off at the proper, you being that where you're supposed to be on certain type aspects, just getting used to throwing with each other first and foremost. It would be, I know Ben Roethlisberger listens to our podcast. How could he not?
I'm sure.
It would be a great time, Ben, or if Aaron, if his web assistant Aaron is listening to this. Great lady, by the way. If anybody listens to this related to Ben and the podcast, it'd be a perfect time right now for things to talk about, for Ben to actually talk about what he would do and accomplish during the off-season trips to Georgia or Lake House or wherever when they get together. I think that would be great insight people would like to hear about of what actually they do work on. What do they go? Do they have a set plan kind of laid out? And it would be kind of cool to hear that, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, that would have been. They had a live stream episode earlier this week, and they didn't have a whole lot to talk about. That would have been some good insight, I think. Yeah, we have no idea anyone who's going out to work with Aaron Rodgers. We can assume it'll be all the receivers and tight ends, but we don't know anybody yet, and we probably won't know that for several more days. In terms of what they do, yeah, I don't know. Do you think there's a script? Do you think they really work on a script? It feels to me more informal, just kind of running some routes, catching passes, like you said, getting familiar with each other, just kind of getting timing down. How does Aaron Rodgers like his throws? How does receiver like the ball? Is he like it higher, lower? What's his catch radius? Just kind of some informal stuff. And then probably also just important to kind of hang out and go to dinner and talk and catch up and talk life and all that kind of stuff and just become, good fellowship experience. I think is probably also an important aspect of their time together.
I would like to think that they just don't show up and just start throwing the ball around. I would like to think there's some
But then does Aaron
structure
do
of
that? Do you think?
something. I would think
you
Aaron's getting them together. I would think some of your veterans, Aaron and Freiermuth and, some of those guys, DK, I would think they have some sort of loose plan going into it of route combos and things of that nature instead of just, hey, run a 7-yard out.
Yeah. I don't know. I wonder if it's just kind of like not sandlot backyard, but just kind of super informal. It's a great question. I would love for
It
any
is
I
a
would
great
love for any
question.
quarterback anywhere to weigh in. Like, how do these things work? How informal are they? How structured are they? I think it'd be a really good conversation to have.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that would be a great just if anybody listens to this and want to tag Ben or whatnot, and maybe he'll talk about it over the next couple of weeks of what they actually tried to accomplish and if they have any loose, you know, script or what have you, because I would like to be a fly on the wall with that stuff.
Did Ben ever throw later in his career with guys? I know he, like you say, he did earlier in his career, but like I don't think did he ever do any of that
They
later
would
in
get
his Steelers
together at the
tenure?
high schools or whatnot, wouldn't they?
Did they?
At
I'm
the
trying to
local
think
high
back.
schools or whatnot, and now look, he had that one season where he's coming back from the arm stuff, but they got together out there and did that kind of stuff, and
Okay.
yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to go back in my head, trying to remember exactly, but it seemed like if they weren't going out of town, that they were getting together at a local high school or something like that.
Yeah, then that makes sense. I'm just trying to think, 'cause I know late in his career, he didn't do a whole lot of off-season activity. He even admitted that on live stream, like, "I didn't throw much, I kept my arm fresh," but I think there were at least some instances of him working a little bit, having a day together with the guys.
All right, great question, Tim, and we'll see if Ben expounds on that. We'll see if Will Howard and Mason Rudolph get invited, and hopefully pictures and who goes where and what all come out of that.
Alright, sounds good. Anything else, Dave?
No, I think we got through all of them here. So I think we're about an hour and 35, 40 minutes as per usual. We got a lot covered today. We'll pick back up on Monday. Once again, we're planning on having a Bengals beat writer that we'll talk to, previewing the Bengals 2025 season. We'll probably hit on another 6 to 9, 90 and 30 series players, and we'll see what else surfaces between now and then.
Oh,
So
by the way, just one piece of NFL news. It's very small, but it's important to my heart. No supplemental draft this summer. The NFL will not hold a supplemental draft. Last one came in 2019, it sounds like. So that just came across the docket.
all right. So we'll end on that. As always, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. Stay tuned for over the weekend, the Jeopardy episode 2. And until Monday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.